Today, we're going over 8 pedal lines that you've probably never heard of. What's up everybody, Jake here, and today we are talking about 8 different guitar pedal lines that you've probably never heard of. Real quick, if this is your first time visiting my channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button for updates on new videos. Alright, so we're going to go over these 8 lines of pedals. Now these 8 lines of pedals all have something in common. They are all discontinued and they were all pretty short-lived, so you've probably never heard of them. Alright, without any further ado, let's dig into it. Number 1 on the list, the MXR Commande pedals. So the Commande pedals were cheap MXR pedals that were released a few years before MXR went out of business. Now they were made to compete with Boss pedals, but were made to be cheaper. So they came in complete plastic enclosures. They were made with cheap chips from China that was in almost every cheap pedal out there, and most of them kind of sounded like complete garbage. Now, these pedals are actually kind of rare. They were only made between 1981 till about 1984, which means they actually fetch a slight premium price. A few months ago, I really wanted to get my hands on one of these pedals because I was curious, because it's just one of those quirky things that like happened and a lot of people haven't heard about it. So I thought it'd be a cool conversational piece for the channel. However, I couldn't really find one that worked. Keep in mind, they're all plastic, so the switches went out in them all the time. So I couldn't really find one that worked for under like 60 bucks. And to pay $60 for a pedal I know is gonna sound like garbage would have been a bit ridiculous. But if you want to check out some quirky pedals, the Commande series is definitely a strange one. Up next, the DoD Performer series. Now, these were again, and something you'll see in common with most of these pedals on this line, they were all trying to compete with Boss pedals, because if you had Boss pedals 20 years ago, you were the cool kid in town. Now you get made fun of. What happened there? Anyway, so the DoD Performer series. I actually own one of these pedals. I bought it to do a video on, but I haven't quite got to doing a video. Now, there were 2 versions. The first version of these pedals were plastic. They had plastic switches and, you know, were very similar to the Commande pedals, where they were very fragile. The next version, version 2, was made in a complete metal enclosure with a cheap plastic switch that doesn't really click. I hate those switches. But they were a lot of the same pedals, just kind of redesigned from version 1. Now, most of these pedals actually sounded pretty good, but there is a reason why they were so short-lived. Look on that side. That's where you plug your guitar in. That's where you go to your amp. There's another 1/4-inch jack on these. Why, you ask? Now, these pedals draw 18 volts of power, so you can... it's stuck. I promise that's a battery compartment. In there you can put 2 9-volt batteries, or you can use the proprietary power supply with a 1/4-inch end. Now, it's such a quirky design to have to... I've never seen a 1/4-inch power supply besides on these pedals, and here's the thing. I bought this pedal for 20 bucks, knowing that I'd have to use batteries with it for the demo. Now, the only power supply of these I can find, like an actual DoD one, goes for $50, because the power supplies were actually pretty scarce. A lot of the pedals didn't even include it when these were going out, so that's why the Performer series was so short-lived, and you probably haven't heard of it, was because of that really silly design. Now, like I said, most of these pedals sound pretty good. This one's built like a mother effing tank, but you need some weird power supply for it. Number 3, the MXR 2000 series. Now, after the Commande series absolutely flopped, MXR tried one more thing before bankruptcy, the 2000 series. Now, the 2000 series, instead of being in a plastic housing, came in a metal housing. However, the sounds were pretty much the same. These are probably even a little more rare than the Commande series, as they did not last long at all. So they came in that metal housing, but it was kind of the same sounds. And a lot of people, when they talk about the 2000 series, talk about how if they would have just gave the pedals catchier names, it probably would have caught on a little better. But most of the pedals were just tape echo, phaser, flanger, and that was really it. So there was no catchy name or no good marketing to convince someone to go buy that instead of a Boss pedal. Number 4 on this list, and a little bit more modern pedal, the Ibanez Tone Lok pedals. Now what the Tone Lok pedals were they were very sturdy pedals. They were in complete metal housing, good switches. However, the knobs could actually be pushed down to lock your settings in place. Now, I actually owned one of these pedals. I owned the CF7, I believe it was called, and it was a chorus / flanger. So it had some funky sounds on it and some weird quirky things it did, but the standard chorus was very, very good. I had it for years. The flanger kind of sucked, but I really bought it for the chorus anyway. But it was built really well, it sounded good, but whenever someone saw it on my board, they'd be like, what the hell is that thing? Now, these pedals, for some reason, never caught on, and they're very plentiful. They're actually fairly cheap on the market. I think I can still find Tone Lok pedals on Reverb for $25 to $30, just because most people haven't heard of them. But they were mass produced, so there's tons to be had, and typically they can be had very cheap. Now there's one pedal in the Tone Lok series that was very popular. That was called the Weeping Demon. So the Weeping Demon was a wah pedal, but it had the Tone Lok features. So that pedal was and still is extremely popular, and a lot of people don't even realize it was part of the failed Tone Lok series. The next series doesn't even really have a name, so I'm just going to call it the 80s PEAVEY pedals. Now there was a time when PEAVEY actually tried to make pedals. However, they were not good. That's all to be said. They came in cheap plastic housings. They were the same cheap chips as any other plastic pedal. They were just complete garbage. And again, they just made tons of these things. So if you want one, you can pretty much find one for about 30 cents on Reverb. And just another thing that did not help PEAVEY is they just looked extremely quirky. So it was just an absolute failed attempt by PEAVEY. Next up, and I'm going to loop these two brands together, even though I don't think that they were technically made by the same company, I'm pretty sure all the components were the same. Rocktek and Arion. So Rocktek and Arion were just absolute dirt cheap pedals. Again, complete plastic housings, but there is a pedal for just pretty much every effect out there. I actually had a Rocktek phaser on the channel a few months back. I'll go ahead and link that video up in the iCard. Check that out if you kind of want to see how these pedals sound. But from that pedal, I think I paid $15 for it on Reverb. It was just noisy, really, really cheap sounding, and I mean, what more can I expect from a cheap pedal? But I'm really surprised those made it onto the market with how bad they were. Now, Rocktek and Arion pedals were pretty much designed the absolute same. When you find them, they're usually missing knobs because they typically broke off. However, people will almost pay you to take these things off their hands because most of them are just utter garbage. Next up, Animals Pedal. Yes, I did say that right. Animals Pedal is actually the name of the brand. So Animals Pedal, I can't say that without thinking I'm pronouncing it wrong. Animals Pedal are pedals that are still in production. I think they're actually a fairly new company, but they pretty much just make copies of already popular pedals like Tube Screamers and carbon copies and stuff like that. They just make copies of these pedals in a different metal casing, but their selling point is there's animals on your pedal. That's how they came up with the name. But anyway, so on each pedal is a design of I think it's typically a bear doing something on the pedal. So it's kind of just a little gimmick and kind of a laugh, but from what I can hear, they seem to be pretty solid pedals and have some good artwork on them. Last up on this list is a very modern pedal line called the Danelectro Billionaire series. So the Billionaire series was released about 3 years ago, but they were kind of redesigned Danelectro pedals. So everybody knows Danelectro for the Food series pedals. The Food series was everybody's first pedal. I had a ton of them, I'm sure you did too, because they were cheap. Now, Danelectro kind of tried to make a comeback a few years ago with these pedals. They were in complete metal enclosures, metal switches. They came in a pretty cool little padded bag, even though 90% of people are gonna lose that anyway. And each pedal went for around $80. Now, some of these pedals sounded absolutely fantastic. The Pride of Texas is basically a Stevie Ray Vaughan tone in a Box. And the spinning speaker pedals, I believe it's called the Big Spender and the Money Laundry, are the only pedals I can think of that make your guitar sound like it's going through a spinning speaker. So those are extremely cool. However, I don't think they really ever caught on because they were still $80. For $20 more, you could get an MXR pedal or a Boss pedal that you know is good, and people have been talking bad about Danelectro pedals for years. So why would I pay almost just as much for a Danelectro pedal as I could buy a Boss or MXR pedal for? So most of these pedals have begun to be clearanced out at stores. However, if you can get one cheap, I definitely recommend checking those out. All right, guys, so there is 8 guitar pedal series you've probably never heard of. How many of these pedal series have you guys heard of? Let me know down below. Is there any hidden diamonds in the rough in these series, or are most of them just complete garbage and there's a reason why they never took off? Anyway, guys, that's pretty much gonna do it for this video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, throw a thumbs up on this video, and any comments, throw them down below. See you guys later.